Hello there, boys and girls. It is Patrick here, Eggnoc Poker. New video today. So, now we are moving into our mid-stakes section. So, we're going to be doing the next couple of episodes of our video series is going to be mid-stakes and then eventually finishing into high stakes. So, we've got today NL 200. We're going to have a couple of sessions at NL 200 and then eventually NL 500, which would be pretty cool. Unfortunately, the NL 500 is very, very rare that it runs, but we will be looking for it when it starts picking up. We will have some more content in there as well. So, promise NL 500 content. There will be NL 500 content when it comes up. So, do keep an eye out for that. Just very quickly, guys, before we start, as always, I just want to give a quick shout out to everyone who's been liking, commenting, subscribing, everyone who's been part of the Discord group. Thank you so much, everybody. Also, just a quick thing. I'm also going to be releasing some new content. We're moving out of the micro stakes and low stakes exploitation with some GTO, moving into mid stakes, high stakes content with a very large, keen focus on all the complex sims and some of the more advanced GTO strategies that we're going to be putting into place and practice. And also a lot of informative content. So, in between these 200 VODs, I'm also going to be releasing not so much like micro stakes cheat sheets, but more like intermediate into advanced concepts with some of the complex GTO sims that are available. There are going to be some interesting things that will be very cool. So do keep an eye out for that, and that will be coming out soon. So excellent. Anyway, so before anything else, I suppose let's just get started, and we will be going into NL 200. So let's get kicking. Hopefully we can make something happen. So NL 200 then. So we're going to be focusing extremely hard on our strategic focus. Obviously, I don't really have any information. I don't play NL 200 on stars, so I don't have any information on anybody really whatsoever. So we're basically just playing hand by hand without any real reads. So we're just going to be playing more of a strategic focus. Pretty much. So hopefully we do okay. Trying to adjust my camera a little bit here. It's a bit annoying, but probably looks like I'm looking in the opposite direction, but it will do for now. 8-3 offsuit, easy fold. It's nice to see there's a couple of short stacks in the pool, so not just completely full of cyborgs, which is good. Of course, also there may be a little bit of a delay between hands just because there's obviously a much smaller pool in the NL 200 and NL 500 streets than there will be anywhere else, especially on stars. 10-5 offsuit is going to be a pitch. We're not going to be doing any shenanigans with this anyway, shape or form, unless it somehow limps to us. See if anyone has a limping strategy. We will see. Well, there's 10-5 offsuit is going to be an easy fold. Marking up the recreationals that we see in the pool. Another one here, limping. Be ISOing the ace-8 offsuit or folding versus aggression, and it's coming around to us. Usually opening to about 3, so gonna up the wager a little bit. Trying to make this 4. There we go. Just adding on an extra big blind to cater for the extra big blind in the pot, considering there's a limper. Don't expect a massive amount of fold equity, but ace-8 off is going to be doing very well versus villain's range. So the way we're going to treat these is just effectively small blind versus big blind. So with ace-8 in the backdoor straight draw, I could get behind a little bit of small betting and some checking. I'm going to start with a check. Versus small to medium sizes, we wouldn't be folding ace high with a backdoor straight draw, but versus effectively full pot, we can just fold. Ace-8 with a spade, we probably would be having to continue, especially the ace of spades. Queen 5 is going to be creeping into a cut-off opening range. Ten-6 is going to be the fold, as will be the 9 deuce. 10-8 offsuit, we can defend versus the small blind. We'll be folding versus the button. 10-9 offsuit is basically where we're sort of drawing the line. We're defending 10-9, not so much 10-8. Jack 7 offsuit, just about fold also. One consideration is the rake is slightly better at NL 200, so we will be able to open a few more hands just because of the reduced rake. 10-9 offsuit would be a low frequency open. Or lower frequency open, should I say. In these pools, we don't want to get too out of line. 8-9 suited. I think for content wise, we'll be opening pure, but effectively we wouldn't be opening this one pure. We'd have to roll this. 9-10 suited, easy open. 8-9 suited starts becoming a little bit more mixed, I would say. Ace-3, we're primarily defending versus the button small blind with some a lot of 3-betting and folding, except versus the small blind, but we will be folding here. 8-6 offsuit, not really good enough to open blind on blinds. Neither is a 9-4. Jack 9 offsuit, we can just about start creeping into an open in the cutoff if it was folded. King 6 and the hijack will be an open. And primarily a fold with the low frequency 4-bet. We roll low, so we will be folding. Four three suited would basically be effectively defending, depending on the action. We'll almost always be certainly defending this one, especially versus late position. Versus a small open, 4-3 suited is just about borderline. With a raise call, we're getting a pretty good price. It's a little bit close though, because we are only 4 high, but we'll defend this. The range of ways to play this texture, we're not donking, but we can go for a check raise, a check call. If villain calls, then we will be folding. If he folds, then we have an option. When it goes raise, re-raise, just have to fold. So there is argument sometimes for potentially 3-bet in the flop, but somewhat aggressive. Can 3-bet and fold queen jack off in the small blinds. You slightly prefer king jack plus, but queen jack is just about in there. Be 3xing the small blind. I'm not going to play a limiting strategy. And queen jack off is primarily folding, and then we start mainly 4-betting hands like sort of ace 10, ace jack, king queen, those types of things. Queen jack is just about a fold. We will have a very small portion of flat and a small portion of 3-bet with a lot of fold on the button. 7-6 suited. Queen jack. Folding versus early. Versus a min open, we can just about defend sometimes versus hijack, and then we start creeping into territory. So we now mix between 3-bet and defend. We've rolled aggressive, so we will be 3-betting. Something like half the time, give or take, with these like kind of offsuit combos. King 10 off, king jack off, queen 9 off, jack 8 suited, king 5 suited, queen 7 suited, blah, blah, blah. Those types of hands are pretty good 3-bet candidates, mixed. Calling is, of course, also fine. Another rookie. Ace 10 off, we're basically not really doing anything against UTG hijack cutoff. And then we start playing versus the button, essentially. And then ace jack off kind of starts creeping into like a 3-bet territory versus like cutoff hijack some of the time. But there's a lot of folding. Ace 8 suited, we will be opening this one. There'll be a decent amount of folding with a small amount of 4-betting, depending on the positions. But again, mainly folding versus aggression, like 3-betting. If we were to do 4-betting with a hand like ace 8 suited, we primarily focus on being slightly later position. And then when we want to be 4-betting, we'll have a hand like ace 4, ace 3, and maybe some ace 5, king 6, those type of hands, king jack suited, king queen suited, and so on. Versus the recreational hijack call is not really a thing to flat 100 big blinds deep. So again, we just kind of treat this blind on blind. We do a lot of checking out of position. I will treat this essentially as if we were blind on blind. So we'll be checking. I feel like this guy is probably going to be doing more c betting. So not c betting, sorry, donk betting. I can't even speak English. Not donk betting, sorry, float betting. If I can speak English. So I feel like his range is going to be very wide, which ace high is beating. Problem is that I feel like he's going to be barreling us off a lot of turns, and I don't want to effectively check raise this. So I am just probably going to let this go most of the time. But because we're treating this blind on blind, ace high, backdoor straight draw, I will be calling at least the flop. We just beat too many hands essentially, and we're just going to treat it as effectively a big blind defense versus like blind. But as you can see, most likely it is probably going to be that we're facing lots of bets, but nothing we can really do with ace eight of diamonds. I don't really want to just fold directly with a backdoor straight draw, blocking some of the best hands as well. Obviously, we beat a lot of sort of kind of mergy hands, semi-bluffs, but unfortunately against recreationals, we probably will be encountering a bit more of these sort of float bets than we want to. Pocket threes is mainly folding with low frequency open hijack. He's been suited. We'll be playing this one. Versus small blind, big blind, we'll just be playing versus a call versus 3-bet. Big blind should be extremely polar. Small blind should be very sort of strong condensed range. I can get behind a small bet or a check with ace queen suited. I've rolled a bet, so we will bet. Primarily focusing on small sizings. Just denying equity, getting a little bit of thin value from some worse ace highs and draws. Checking is also completely fine. When we do want to bet, we tend to prefer it's not so much like we're not bluffing. It's just a case of like we can get value and we get a bit of protection versus naked hands, and we can put a bit of pressure on some of the small pocket pairs by the turn. But checking, of course, is also fine. Queen 4 offsuit will just be a fold. There is, I believe, it's either Queen 5 or Queen 6 plus that can do some aggressive action, but Queen 4 offsuit just a little bit too weak. Ace 8 offsuit is just going to be a fold versus the button. We'll choose ace 8 suited to 3-bet. Can also do some small frequency calling as well if you want to have a small blind calling range. Pitching the jack 6. And the 9-3. Nice and boring start, unfortunately, but is what it is. Can open the Queen 5 suited in the cutoff. We'll be folding versus an open. Ace 8 again. Seems to be the theme of the session. So ace 8 offsuit will mix between, well, it's not a full mix, but it will do some calling, it will do some 3-betting, it will not fold versus either the button or the small blind. Versus the small blind open, though, we will be only calling. We're trying to focus primarily on the weakest parts of our offsuit ace region to 3-bet, so ace 8 is just strong enough to call. Just for the sake of it, I'm trying to save face a bit with my timings, so I'm just going to make sure I do sort of don't do any instant actions. 10-7-5, slightly better for me overall, but villain's gonna have slightly more pocket ten, well, a lot more pocket tens than me, but my range is gonna slightly hit this more than him. I've got ace high, backdoor straight draw, no diamonds. Again, small sizing or check, primarily check to be honest, with showdown value. We do beat some like king highs and so on. We will face some delayed betting. I would think villain can do anything on the 5. Right, villain could do some overbetting if you wanted to. Could do some large. Could do some small. So the small sizing is gonna put a lot of pressure on hands similar to mine. I think with a delayed small sizing, we still beat some hands, but our hand is a little bit too, I would say a little bit too weak to call versus the delayed block. And I'll be mainly defending with diamonds. Versus the solver, it probably want you to call, but I think I'm just gonna say it. I think people are, even at 200, I think people are still going to be a little bit too thin value happy, when they check the flop and then go for a delayed small sizing. It's usually just value. So just going to sort of give it a little bit more respect, perhaps. Even though ace high will still just genuinely be the best hand enough of the time there, but going to give villain a little bit more credit. King Queen suited we will be playing primarily as a call versus the big blinds. King 7-6, small sizing, medium sizing. I think King Queen mainly just wants to bet for value because we can still get value from a lot of hands. Obviously, worse King X and draws and so on. Little bit of protection in some ways, but still primarily just value. It's annoying because my stars caption is actually expired, so I'm waiting for it to be re-put back on. So I'm currently typing in and clicking on buttons rather than sort of looking for my sizings. On the ace turn, we now push into overbet check, I believe. King Queen, I don't really want a small bet sizing here. I kind of want to have a pretty polar sizing. We do block ace king, we do block ace queen, we unblock a lot of the draw type hands. I think King Queen could go for an overbet, but primarily checks. I'm going to go for an overbet this time. I think ace King Queen is just about good enough to go for a value bet. Obviously, in terms of what can call, it's just a case of villain's going to have a lot of combo type hands. He can still have a worse king. He can have King X of spades also. He can have combo draws. He can have. There's a few hands obviously that we're mainly checking back against, but I think King Queen is just about good enough. Of course, we do have King Queen of spades also, perhaps instead to bet, but I can get behind King Queen. I think against the right types of villains, you would probably want to favor checking back though. But I think I'm just going to treat this against unknowns NL200. We could probably get away with it. Pocket Kings, that's a pretty good hand. We'll obviously be 3-betting this one. And just opening, hoping for some action. 3-bet would be lovely. We don't get it. Jack 7-3, small to I sound like a broken record. Small to medium size check to check raise is also all options are available. We do block some of the primary calls that we want from villain, like King X of diamonds and so on. So I don't mind having some checks. So I will check this time. We'll be looking for the check raise. Ace of Hearts, annoying card, but we're still ahead of a lot of range. Again, we kind of push into large and check. There is some small sizings also, because we can still get back. We will still want to get value from some Jack X, some flush draws like 3x of hearts, like pocket eights, things like this. Checking is also completely fine. A little bit more favored because villains, obviously, a large portion of his range will still be ace X, but kings will not get to fold. I like villain sizing. I kind of prefer overbet and villain shoes, but pot is obviously fine size. And then when the ace pairs, we can't do anything but call because now this limits the amount of value. Villain's going to have like a million types of straight draw, flush draw type hands, weak hands. We just have to call. 6 deuce of diamonds will be one of them. Check raising on the river versus pot is not really, is kind of out of the question. So just calling really is our only sort of option. Don't want to sort of check raise. We're only really trying to bluff catch against like missed hands similar to that one. The weakest flush draws, marginal hands, straight draws. You can even beat value technically as well. Obviously, villain can have like 9, maybe not. I suppose 9s for value. Some Jack X, and then obviously we lose to a large amount of Ace X and beat a bunch of bluffs. So it's kind of where we're looking at in terms of strategy. Queen 9 suited versus the button is just going to be a fold. Don't want to be doing anything else but folding. Queen 10, Queen Jack suited does a lot of folding also with a very small smidgen of call just to be in there. The King 5, 6, 7 region will be a mix 50-50 between open and fold. We roll low, so we're going to be folding. When you get to the hijack, they then start becoming pure. Just to sound really nitpicky and anal about our ranges, but try and be as close to theory as possible. 10-5 suited, we will be folding round unless it folds to us and we can attack the blind. Opening this one and obviously folding to 3-bet. Flies everywhere, it's annoying. Ace 10 offsuit will be an easy open and of course a fold against all position 3-bets. Uh, 6-6-5 should encounter a lot of donking from villain. Ace 10 off, primarily checking back, preferring to have a diamond with aggressive action. But again, there will always be a smidgen of bet because you can get thin value, but it's also about protection. I rolled low, so going to check back. But what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of turn and river aggression for mixed sizes. And like these ace-high, king-high, naked type hands struggle to defend in the post-flop streets, turn and river. So villain here can mix between block. He can overbet, he can check, he can do a lot of things. If he had a hand like queen 10 off with a diamond and stuff, it's kind of cool to overbet and push out some of these ace-highs. As played now, our hand becomes a check back. There's no value to be had here. It doesn't really make any sense to go ahead and bet, so we're just checking down. The 5 is also pretty good in a way because it limits the amount of traps villain can have. Villain should now be going extremely big with his sizings. He wants to value bet 8s, 7s, 9s. He could even just triple overbet another sort of king high type hand, queen high, because he wants to knock out my ace size. And villain has a massive leverage on 5x. We block ace 5 of spades, which is a nice combo to block. Villain's also just going to have some queen high, jack highs, 10 highs, 3s, deuces, 4s. So we have to call with ace high, and we beat king high. Well, not beat, but chop with. In terms of rivers, if we didn't block a 5x suited, so a different ace 10 there, I'd probably just fold. Because obviously we don't want to just be calling pure with ace high just to chop, you know. There's obviously a full house on the board. I think I actually prefer a larger size than 2x pot from villain. I actually prefer like a 3, 4, 5x overbet. Maybe even like that kind of territory, which is a bit sort of silly, just because it really puts more pressure on ace high. And also he gets more value essentially as well. I can't fold pure and so on. Blah, 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 blah. But blocking ace 5 suited with spades is a nice hand to block. I think we also blocked the 6. I can't remember off the top of my head. Deuces will be defending versus the button. Not really anything to do here, but check fold to most sizes. Villain should primarily, you can split between overbet and block here. Obviously, of course, check is also reasonable. Against block, we have to call. Against overbet, or pot, whatever you want to choose, we have to fold. So against block, so just to say it, villain can just have a lot of bets and he will be barreling multiple streets. But the thing is, deuces just comes into a defense against block, because otherwise we just kind of essentially not hitting MDF. We're just getting run over, essentially. There will be a lot of turns of rivers that we're not doing great on, unfortunately. So one of our primary hands that gets to the river, we have a lot of 10x. We have a lot of queen jack. We lose to any pair. We now lose to a rivered ace x. So I actually really like a sort of 2.5 to 3x overbet here, representing a 10, representing queen jack, putting massive pressure on a hand like a king. Pocket queens, pocket jacks. Villain will also river some weak ace x sometimes. But deuces is not going to win on showdown enough of the time. So overbet here is nice. Just essentially as a thing also, against the solver, you can check there, and it probably will check a lot. I think I'm still going to use the logic of I think these guys are a bit more honest. So I actually prefer going for, it's a little bit more exploitative perhaps, but I actually quite prefer a really large size on the river. It would really suck just to lose to like a shit ace or like a hand like jacks or a hand like 4s, 5s, things like this, which will happen often. So on the deuce texture, we actually push into an overbet size, I believe. I think, actually, hang on, I can't remember, this is either block or overbet. Okay, so I can't remember, so I'm going to go with the safe option. Deuce textures, really good for the aggressor because the deuce x is not often in villain's range compared to like 3-3-4-4 where we do block and check. I think that's actually overbet for value because villain doesn't have a lot of deuce x and we trade the deuce x. Like he has like 5 deuce more than me, I suppose. Maybe some 4 deuce, but apart from that, there's almost no deuce x in range that we don't have. So I actually think that may have been an overbet. It's an overbet in different spots at least, but there you go. Queen, deuce, a lot of small bet and check. 8s really likes to bet for protection. Obviously, we get value from a bunch of hands as well, but checking and allowing him to check back is not great. So I really like the idea to just bet small, deny some equity versus like ace 4 off, king 9, anything above the 8, and obviously start targeting some ace highs for value, smaller pocket pairs for value, backdoor floats for value, etc., etc. So there's a range of good boxes to tick with the small bet. Of course, check will always be in there. I still just almost effectively just prefer to betting all the time with that hand. Queen 3 suited. So our cutoff in this rake is against like a min open is essentially like queen 6 plus, something like that. So this is a clear fold versus under the gun. Even if villain had min opened, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe queen 3 would just be a pitch because it's just too weak of a holding. Even king 3 versus like a min open is very close, very, very close. Because essentially you're always going to be dominated. You're never going to be up against a worse combination. To basically put it in sort of layman's terms. Ace-10 offsuit, we will be essentially folding versus 3-bet. I believe we're almost always folding. I think it's, again, hands like the king-jack offsuits, the king-queen offsuits, ace-jack offsuit, that like 4-betting, especially against the small blind, because the small blind is the strength condensed range, and the big blind is the polar range. So ace-10 is a little bit happier to get 3-bet by the big blinds, but against small blinds, I think we have to have ace-jack off plus there to 3-bet, I believe. Don't quote me on these, by the way, but close enough. I'm going to set out on the big blind for this one, and then we'll be... okay, well, let's play at least 1 or 2 more hands. I wanted to get a few more hands in before we finished. Ace-4 offsuit will be doing a small amount of 3-betting, and then primarily folding versus button, and then call and 3-bet a lot versus small blind. Both mix are fine. I would think. Yeah, we'll sit out on the big blind this time. King 10 of spades. We'll be opening this one. Kind of hoping not to get 3-bet by the small blind. This call is going to induce a lot of squeezing from the big blind. The only thing is if he's paying attention, there's a small blind. Yes, they will be capped a lot, but they have 38 big blinds effective. So he shouldn't be being that liberally aggressive because obviously he might just get jammed on often. So if he 3-bets like king 5 suit, he just gets shoved on by like a pair of 7s and stuff. It's not really great. A lot of c-betting for very small size on king queen jack. Our range is doing astronomically well. Small blind condensed range shouldn't really have jacks, queens, kings. It should be doing a lot of 3-betting. There will be some calling. King 10 will now mix between essentially can block, it can go big, it can check. Against a recreational, we're only exploitative. So I actually don't mind just going for this sort of half pot against a short stack. Just trying to keep the value in, like jack 10, pocket 9s, pocket 10s, queen 10. Because I know I'm not really being exploited to some extent. Otherwise, this would really be sort of like mainly big and check. I don't think I can get 3 streets out of king 10 against a recreational. Because of his stack size, I'm very scared about betting small exploitatively and getting jammed on, so I'm just going to check. Against most regs, though, you do kind of want to have some check backs there, and you also want to have some small bets and primarily some big sizes too. Anyway, so that wraps it up for part 1 of our 200 series. There will be plenty more coming up, and then, excuse me, moving into 500 as well. So please like and comment. Make sure you press that subscribe button. Leave a comment in the comment section. Press the like button. It massively pushes me through the algorithm. And also, please check out my Discord in the link, and my Twitch also in the link below, which is down there. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next one.